6 for section 713, which is titled Two-Column Proofs. All right, and we're going to answer the question, how else can I write it? So for question number 33, it says that Ansel has done a lot of proofs using congruent triangles. Now he wants to challenge himself to prove the conjecture that opposite angles of a parallelogram are congruent, but to prove it without using congruent triangles. He starts by creating the diagram below. So if you, first thing I want you to do is copy down this diagram right here. Complete the missing statements and reasons to prove that if a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, then its opposite angles are congruent. Okay, so we're first going to do this proof using what's called a flowchart proof. Then we're going to do the exact same proof, but we're going to use this new thing called a two-column proof. Okay, so flowchart proof you've seen a lot. We did that a lot with the proving triangles congruent. So for this one, we're going to take a parallelogram. Parallelogram T, U, V, W. Okay, and by definition, it is a parallelogram, meaning that its opposite sides are parallel. See the word parallel in the word parallelogram? Parallels right in there, okay? You have the word parallel in it, that means that you're going to find things parallel, okay? So the left and the right side are parallel to each other, and the top and the bottom are parallel to each other. So we use these little arrows, they're called carets, to show that the left and the right are parallel, and the top and the bottom are parallel. That's just what's in the definition of a parallelogram, okay? So TW is the left, UV is the right. They're parallel to each other. We use that double stick. That's the symbol for parallel, and it's just by definition of parallelogram. The other one that they give us is the top and the bottom. So TU and WV are also parallel for the same reason. And that reason is that it's part of the definition. It's part of the word parallelogram that you're going to have parallel items. Okay? Then we're going to see that B and C are equal to each other. So here's angle B right here. Here's angle C. That's going to be given. No, we don't have a reason. Oh, they are corresponding angles. So let's fill that in. We didn't have that in there. By corresponding angles, if we use this line right here as our transversal, these are in the same position as we go along that transversal. And then A is equal to B, so this angle equal to that one. And those would be by alternate interior angles. Let me shrink this just a tad so you can see the whole thing. And then if B is equal to C and A is equal to B, you're going to notice that B is in both of them. So if C is equal to B and A is equal to B, then those two have to be equal to each other too, right? That's A is equal to C. That's what we call substitution. Some people call it the transitive property. And that proves that they are equal to each other. All right, we're going to take this exact same proof and we're going to make it into two columns. Anybody still writing page 6? All right, flip over to the top of page 7. All right, question number 34 says that another way to organize a proof is called a two-column proof. Instead of using arrows to indicate the order of logical reasoning, this style of proof lists statements and reasons in a linear order, first to last in columns. The proof from problem 33 has been converted to a two-column proof below. Complete the proof on your paper using the statements and reasons from the previous problem. Okay? So again, we're still talking about the same figure, TUVW. It's a parallelogram, and that's the given information. We know that TW is parallel to UV. It's part of the definition. And TU is also parallel to WV, part of the definition. So if you remember, that was left to right and top to bottom. These two and these two are all parallel. Then we went into talking about the angles. B was equal to C. They are corresponding angles. They're going to be congruent. A was equal to B. That was alternate interior angles. And then the last statement was because they're both equal to B, then A must be equal to C. So that's substitution, sometimes referred to as the transitive property. Pretty much the same proof we just went over on the previous page. It's just listed in 2 columns instead of being listed as a flowchart. Okay? Anybody still writing? We have question 35, which says, a line is a perpendicular bisector of a line segment if the line is perpendicular to the segment and passes through the midpoint of the segment. In the figure at right, PM, which is a line, is going to be the perpendicular bisector of AB. So you guys are going to draw in a few pieces of information that they just gave us. First, they say that PM, so this one coming down the middle, is perpendicular. So you're going to put the little boxes on each side. Little box showing it's perpendicular here, little box perpendicular here. It's also the bisector, meaning it cuts it in half, making this piece on the left congruent to this piece on the right. So we're going to put a little tick here and a little tick here, showing that they're congruent to each other because it was bisected. Bisected means cut exactly in half. Okay? And then that point M lies on AB. We got it. Okay. Nothing really to mark for that. Complete the 2-column proof to show that point P is equidistant, the same distance from points A and B. That is, prove that PA is congruent to PB. Okay, so let me make it a little bit bigger. All right, first thing we're going to do is start with the given information that PM is perpendicular bisector. We drew in the little boxes. We gave it our little tick marks. That's the information we're given to work with. So it creates 2 angles. It creates angle PMA and PMB. So PMA goes this way. PMB goes this way. Because we drew in the little box, that means they're each 90 degrees. That's the definition of what perpendicular means. Okay? And we also put a little tick mark here and a little tick mark there. That's because we know what bisector means. Bisector just cuts it exactly in half and makes the 2 pieces congruent to each other. Then we're going to say that PM is congruent to PM. So right down the middle here, we're going to put a double tick. That means we're putting it on top of itself. PM and PM are the same thing, right? So that's like looking in the mirror. You're seeing yourself exactly the same, right? You're looking at your reflection. So we use this word reflexive, which is similar to the word reflection, right? That creates 2 congruent triangles. We have a side congruent to a side, an angle congruent to an angle, and then a shared side congruent to the shared side. So we have side, angle, side congruence, and we just proved that triangle PAM, our friend Pam, is congruent to triangle PBM by side, angle, side. Okay? Once you've proven that two triangles are congruent, then all of their corresponding parts can be congruent. Okay, so whatever you see on the left side is going to be congruent to whatever you see in the same position on the right side. So PA, so from P to A right here, dash in that line, because it wasn't given to us, is going to be congruent to PB, and that's by corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. They write it like this. I prefer to write CPCTC. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent.